Pico della Mirandolas, 900 Theses, Conclusiones non gente, 1486. Pico published these in Rome in December 1486, proposing to defend them in public disputation. Pope Innocent VIII condemned 13 as heretical before the event could take place. They are divided into two major parts: theses drawn from others' opinions, secundum opinione maliorum, and theses drawn from his own opinion, secundum propriam opinionem. Part 1. Conclusions according to the opinions of others. I. Arab and Jewish philosophers. 1. Albertus Magnus. 6 theses, drawn from the Dominican philosopher-theologian. 1. The intellect in act and the intellect in potency are not distinct substances, but aspects of the single human intellective soul. 2. The agent intellect illuminates phantasms as a formal, not efficient, cause. 3. God knows particulars through universals, not through a direct individuating cognition. Prime matter possesses a minimal but real form, forma corporeitatis, prior to elemental differentiation. 5. The celestial spheres are moved by intelligences that are substantially united to them, not merely extrinsic movers. 6. The will is the nobler power of the soul, superior to intellect in the order of beatitude. 2. Averroes Ibn Rushd, 20 Theses, drawn from the great Andalusian commentator on Aristotle. 1. The material intellect, intellectus materialis, is a single, separate, eternal substance common to all humans, not individuated per person. 2. The agent intellect, intellectus agens, is likewise a single, separate substance, identified with the lowest celestial intelligence. 3. Conjunction, conjunctio, of the human possible intellect with the separate agent intellect constitutes the highest human felicity. 4. Prime matter is pure potentiality with no actuality whatsoever, not even the actuality of existence. Forms do not come from nothing. All generation is eduction of form from the potency of matter. The eternity of the world is demonstrable by natural reason. The soul is a mover of the body, not its form in the Aristotelian sense. The body is the soul's instrument, not its matter. There is but one intellect for all humanity, individuated appearances to the contrary being illusory. Celestial motion is perpetual and requires no external sustaining cause, moment to moment. Natural knowledge cannot demonstrate individual immortality of the soul. Faith asserts what philosophy cannot prove. The plurality of intelligences in celestial spheres is not philosophically demonstrable, but must be accepted on other grounds. The first cause acts by necessity of nature, not by free will, in the natural philosophical account. Substantial change requires a subject persisting through the change, prime matter itself. Accidental forms can exist in the same substrate simultaneously without contradiction. The intellect, once conjoined with universals, becomes in some sense divine. The heavens are animated. Celestial souls belong to a higher order than human souls. Time is the measure of celestial motion and cannot have existed before motion. Mathematics abstracts from sensible matter, but not from intelligible matter. Metaphysics abstracts from both. The limit of human perfection is the actualization of the possible intellect through the intelligibles. The soul's immortality, in the Averroistic sense, pertains to the universal intellect, not to the individual. Avicenna, Ibn Sina, 8 Theses. 1. The human soul is an immaterial substance capable of existing independently of the body, the flying man argument. 2. God is the necessary existent, wajib al-wujud. All other beings are possible existence whose essence does not entail existence. Existence is an accident added to essence in all beings except God. 4. The 10 intelligences emanate necessarily from the first through a process of eternal intellectual self-reflection. 5. The agent intellect, the 10th intelligence, is the proximate cause of the illumination of human intellects, and the bestower of forms on matter. 6. The soul acquires intelligible forms through illumination from the agent intellect, not solely through abstraction from sensibles. 7. Prophecy is a natural faculty, an intense perfection of the imaginative power combined with intellectual illumination. 8. The resurrection described in Scripture refers to a spiritual return to intelligible reality, not solely to bodily resurrection. 4. Avi Sabran, Ibn Gabirol, 10 Theses, drawn from the Jewish Neoplatonist philosopher of the Fons Vitae. 1. All beings below God, including spiritual substances and angels, are composed of matter and form, universal hylomorphism. Spiritual matter, materia spiritualis, underlies spiritual forms, just as corporeal matter underlies bodily forms. 3. The will, voluntas of God, is the mediating principle between the divine essence and all created beings. 4. Unity belongs to God alone, essentially. All created things possess unity by participation. 5. The universal intellect is the first and most excellent of created things, containing all forms within itself. 6. Intelligence, soul, and nature form a descending hierarchy of spiritual substances, each expressing divine will at a lower level. 7. The forms present in material things are images, vestigia of the spiritual forms in higher substances. 8. Knowledge consists in the soul's recognition of the spiritual forms that mirror its own nature. 9. The return of the soul to its source requires philosophical contemplation of universal form. 10. The soul's ascent through the hierarchy of being corresponds to progressively simpler and more unified forms of knowledge. Al-Farabi, 6 Theses. 1. Philosophy and religion share the same ultimate truth, but express it differently. Philosophy through demonstration, religion through imaginative representation. 2. The ideal state, al-Medina al-Fadila, mirrors the cosmic order, with the first principle as its exemplar and the philosopher king as its earthly analog. 3. Happiness, Saada, consists in the actualization of the theoretical intellect through the intelligibles. 4. Prophecy requires extraordinary perfection of both the rational and imaginative faculties. 5. Logic is the instrument, organon, of all sciences, not merely of philosophy. 6. The soul's immortality is tied to the development of the acquired intellect, intellectus adeptus. 6. Al-Kindi, Moses Maimonides, and other Arab and Jewish authorities, 14 additional theses, including positions on the negative of divine attributes. Maimonides, God's essence cannot be positively described. All attributes are negations or relational. The harmony of philosophy and Torah in Maimonides. Mathematical sciences as preparation for metaphysics. The limits of prophetic knowledge and its relationship to intellectual perfection. Al-Kindi's doctrine of the emanation of light as an analogy for intellectual illumination. B. Chaldean theology, 3 theses, attributed to Zoroaster and the Chaldean oracles. 1. Fire is the supreme principle, the divine fire from which all reality proceeds and to which it returns. 2. The triadic structure of reality, Father, power, and intellect, or mind, is the primordial pattern of being. 3. The soul descends into matter through successive veils and ascends through theurgic practice and contemplation of the divine fire. C. Greek philosophers and Neoplatonists. 7. Pythagoras and Pythagoreans. About 10 theses. 1. Number is the principle of all things, not as material substrate, but as the formal intellectual structure underlying reality. 2. The monad is the principle of number. Numbers proceed from the monad's self-differentiation. 3. The tetractys, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, contains the mathematical ratios underlying harmonic, cosmic and metaphysical order. The soul is a harmony. Its nature is analogous to musical proportion among the parts of the body. 5. The transmigration of souls, metempsychosis, reflects the soul's descent through and return through levels of being. 6. Mathematical objects are intermediate between sensibles and intelligibles, more stable than the former, less purely intellectual than the latter. 7. The cosmos is ordered by mathematical ratios. Astronomy, music, and arithmetic share a common foundation. 8. Silence and ascetic discipline are necessary prerequisites for philosophical enlightenment. 9. The 5 regular solids correspond to the 5 elements: earth, cube; water, icosahedron; air, octahedron; fire, tetrahedron; ether, cosmos, dodecahedron. 10. Everything in the universe stands in harmonic relation, producing the inaudible musica universalis. 8. Plato, Evage, 55 Theses, drawn from multiple dialogues. Metaphysics 1. The good, to agathon, transcends being and essence, as the Republic, 509b, teaches. It is beyond intellect and being. 2. The forms, idei, are eternal, immutable, self-subsistent realities. Sensible things participate in them without being identical to them. 3. The form of beauty is identical with absolute beauty, not the beauty of bodies, faces, or disciplines, but beauty itself. Symposium 211. 4. The demiurge fashions the cosmos by looking to eternal forms as his model. Timaeus 29a. 5. The world's soul is composed of same and different, and essence, blended by the demiurge in the ratios of the Timaeus. 6. Time is the moving image of eternity. Timaeus 37d. 7. Matter, chora, is a third kind, neither form nor sensible copy, but a receptacle without qualities. 8. The one of the Parmenides transcends all predication, including being and unity. 9. The second one of the Parmenides, the one that is, corresponds to intellect possessing the forms. The third hypothesis of the Parmenides corresponds to soul's participation in being. Epistemology 11. Knowledge, episteme, is recollection, anamnesis. The soul knew the forms before its embodiment. 12. True opinion, doxa, differs from knowledge in lacking causal account. Logos. 13. The divided line of the Republic presents 4 cognitive states corresponding to 4 ontological levels. 14. Mathematical objects occupy an intermediate epistemic position, clearer than visible things, less clear than forms. Psychology and ethics. 15. The tripartite soul, rational, spirited, appetitive, must be ordered by reason for justice to exist. 16. Virtue is knowledge. No one errs willingly. Vice is always a form of ignorance. 17. The philosopher must die to sensory attachment before philosophical illumination is possible. 18. The best life is the philosophical life. The tyrant's life is most wretched. Republic Ein. Eros is a mediating daemon between gods and mortals, drawing the soul upward toward the beautiful. Symposium 202-203. 20. The soul's 3 parts correspond to the 3 classes of the ideal city. Cosmology and theology. 21. God is the supreme craftsman, good, wishing all things to be as like himself as possible. 22. The planets and stars are ensouled divine beings, secondary gods fashioned by the demiurge. 23. The cosmos is a living creature with soul and intellect. Timaeus 30b. 24. The celestial motions constitute a visible demonstration of the mathematical order of the world's soul. 25. Providence governs the whole. Chance governs particulars only in the absence of providential design. Additional theses drawn from Cratylus, Philebus, Sophist, Laws, Phaedrus, Phaedo, Meno, etc. 9. Plotinus' 55 Theses drawn primarily from the Enneads. The One is absolutely simple, beyond being, beyond intellect, beyond even unity as a predicate. The One does not think, will, or act in any mode that implies composition or division. The One is the source of all things by a necessity that is not compulsion, but the natural overflow of perfect self-sufficiency. The procession from the One is eternal and simultaneous, not temporal or sequential. The One can be approached only through a stripping away of all predicates, a via negativa of assent. Intellect. Intellect is the second hypostasis, proceeding from the One by a kind of turning back and gazing upon its source. Intellect is the realm of the forms. Thinker and thought are identical in it. The forms are the thoughts of the intellect, not external objects, but its very activity. Intellect is both unity and plurality, unified as a whole, multiple as containing all the forms. Beauty subsists primarily in intellect. Sensible beauty is its trace. The world soul proceeds from intellect as intellect proceeded from the One. Soul has two aspects, a higher aspect always resting in intellect, and a lower aspect that governs the material world. Individual souls are portions of the world soul, not parts in a spatial sense, but instantiations of the same principle. The soul's descent into body is not punishment, but a natural expression of its productive power. The soul retains an undescended part that remains always in contact with intellect. Matter and evil. Matter is not a principle co-equal with the good. It is the extreme of privation, the total absence of form. Evil is not a positive reality, but the absence of good, the shadow cast by the procession from the One. The material world is not evil. It is the best possible image of the intelligible world. Return and mystical union. The soul's return, epistrophe, follows the reverse of the order of procession. The final union with the One is beyond knowledge, beyond thought, a pure, simple presence. 21. The mystic ascent requires first ethical purification, then intellectual contemplation, then transcendence of intellect itself. Additional theses on time and eternity, the nature of matter, the status of individual souls, beauty, love, virtue, happiness, and providence. 10. Porphyry, 11 theses. 1. The categories apply to sensible and intelligible substances in analogous but not univocal senses. 2. The 5 predicables, genus, species, differentia, property, accident, are logical tools for organizing natural and philosophical discourse. 3. The soul's vehicle, okama, is a subtle body that accompanies the soul through its descents and ascents. 4. Theurgy as a discipline for the lower soul has merit, but true ascent requires intellectual philosophy, not ritual. 5. The universals dispute. Universals exist as mental concepts derived from real resemblances in things. 6. The soul's liberation requires philosophical contemplation. Theurgy alone is insufficient. 7. The evil daemons that inhabit lower regions of the cosmos are responsible for most of what humans attribute to divine action. 8. Philosophy is the highest form of piety. The philosophical life is itself the supreme theurgical act. 9. The body is an obstacle to the soul's true good. The philosopher seeks liberation from bodily concerns. 10. Different religions worship the same ultimate God through different rites and names, appropriate to different peoples. 11. Oracles and prophecy can be genuinely divine, but require philosophical discernment to interpret correctly. 11. Iamblichus, 14 theses. 1. Theurgy, divine ritual action, is superior to theoretical philosophy for the soul's ascent. That gods respond to ritual, not argument. 2. The gods are wholly transcendent and cannot be affected or altered. Theurgical rites do not change the gods, but change the practitioner. 3. The soul's vehicle, okima, is divided into multiple layers corresponding to different levels of being through which it passes. 4. The Chaldean oracles represent revealed divine wisdom superior in authority to philosophical speculation. 5. The one of Plato's Parmenides is the absolutely ineffable first principle, prior even to the Platinian one. 6. Above the Platinian one, Iamblichus posits an absolutely transcendent ineffable beyond all conception. 7. The Henads, divine unities, mediate between the one and the multiplicity of beings. 8. Number is not merely mathematical, but ontologically fundamental. The gods themselves possess numerical structure. Time, in its deepest sense, is the self-unfolding of eternal life, not merely the measure of motion. 10. The world soul is not directly one with individual souls. Intermediate levels of soul must be posited. 11. Daemons, heroes, and angels are real intermediate beings in the hierarchical structure of reality. 12. Prayer has genuine metaphysical efficacy. It elevates the soul to sympathy with higher beings. 13. The perfect philosopher-theurgist unites practical divine service with theoretical contemplation. 14. Fate, Hymarmene, governs souls that have not achieved liberation through theurgy and philosophy. 12. Proclus' 55 Theses, drawn from the elements of theology, Platonic theology, and commentaries. Systematic metaphysics. 1. Every productive cause is superior to what it produces. Causes transcend their effects. 2. All that proceeds from a cause remains in that cause while proceeding. Mone protos epistrophe, remaining procession return. Every effect strives to return to its cause. This striving is the metaphysical basis of love and desire. Being, life, and intellect form the fundamental triad within the second hypostasis, nous. Every nous intellect is simultaneously intellect, the intelligible, and the act of intellection. The self-sufficient is superior to what requires another. Hence, the one is most self-sufficient. Every composite can be dissolved. Only the absolutely simple is indestructible. Beyond being, the divine Henads, units of deity, participate in the one and distribute divine causality through reality. Each Henad is a god. The pantheon of traditional Greek religion is the symbolic expression of the Henad structure of reality. The gods are not composites. Their unity is their defining characteristic. The world soul is the cause of time and all temporal existence. Individual souls possess an indestructible core, the Platonic flower of the soul, always in contact with the divine. Providence operates through a descending chain. First the Henads, then intellect, then soul, then nature. Evil is privation in the realm of particulars. At the level of universal causes, there is no evil. Philosophy of mathematics. Mathematical objects are intermediate between intelligibles and sensibles, subsisting in the imagination. Geometric proof proceeds through construction in the imagination, not through pure intellection. The limit peros and the unlimited aporon are the two fundamental principles of mathematical being. Additional theses on time, eternity, motion, providence, fate, freedom, the soul's immortality, etc. 13. Theophrastus, Themistius, Simplicius, and other Greek commentators, approximately 20 additional theses, including positions on the relationship between Aristotle and Plato as fundamentally harmonious on key metaphysical questions, the independence or dependence of the active intellect, the correct interpretation of Aristotle's De Anima, the eternity and nature of celestial motion, the nature of place and void. D. Scholastic Latin philosophers. 14. Thomas Aquinas, 20 Theses. 1. Being, esse, and essence are really distinct in all beings except God, in whom they are identical. 2. In God, essence, existence, and the divine attributes are absolutely simple and identical. 3. Angels are individuated by their species. Each angel is its own species. Individuation requires matter. 4. The soul is the substantial form of the body, forma corporis, not a substance using a body. 5. The intellective soul is immaterial and subsistent, capable of existence apart from the body. The intellect abstracts universal intelligible species from phantasms through the action of the agent intellect. 7. God knows all things, including future contingents and particulars, through a single eternal intuition. 8. Divine providence extends to every particular, including chance events and free human acts. 9. Grace does not destroy nature but perfects it. Natural reason and faith are complementary, not contradictory. 10. The beatific vision, visio beatifica, consists in the direct intellectual intuition of the divine essence, made possible by the light of glory, lumen gloriae. 11. Christ is one person in two natures. The hypostatic union preserves both natures intact. 12. The Eucharistic transformation is best explained by transubstantiation. The substance changes while the accidents remain. 13. Natural law is participation in eternal law through human reason. 14. The cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, are genuine virtues, not merely acquired habits, but forms perfecting the soul's powers. 15. Theological virtues, faith, hope, charity, exceed natural virtues in dignity and require supernatural infusion. 16. Happiness, felicitas, in the ultimate sense, consists in the vision of God, not merely in the exercise of philosophical virtues. 17. The first principles of reason, non-contradiction, identity, are self-evidently known, not derived from experience. 18. Creation ex nihilo is not philosophically demonstrable, but is a truth of faith that does not contradict reason. 19. The eternity of the world cannot be philosophically proved or disproved. It is an open question for unaided reason. 20. Scripture has multiple senses, literal, allegorical, moral, anagogical, all governed by the literal sense as their foundation. 15. John Duns Scotus, number 20 Theses, 1. God's existence is demonstrable a posteriori from the concept of a first efficient, first final, and most perfect being. 2. The formal distinction, distinctio formalis, is intermediate between a real distinction and a merely conceptual one. It holds ex natura rei prior to any act of mind. 3. Individuation is achieved by an irreducible positive principle, the haexietos, thisness, which makes a thing this individual rather than merely a member of a species. 4. The divine attributes, wisdom, goodness, justice, are formally distinct from the divine essence ex natura rei, not merely conceptually distinguished. 5. God's will is absolutely primary. God could have ordained a different moral order. The goodness of moral precepts depends on divine command. 6. The Immaculate Conception of Mary is philosophically consistent and theologically appropriate, a preventive redemption. 7. The contingency of the world reflects the freedom of the divine will. God did not create by necessity. Univocity of being. Ens. Being is predicated univocally of God and creatures, not merely analogically, to make metaphysics and natural theology coherent. 9. The possible intellect is really distinct from the soul's essence. The will is really distinct from the possible intellect. 10. Charity, amor amicitiae toward God, is the supreme act of the will and the supreme moral act. 11. The will is free in a robust sense. Even under the strongest intellectual determination, it can act otherwise. Libertas contradictionis. 12. Matter has a minimal actuality of its own prior to the imposition of form. Prime matter is not pure potentiality. 13. The soul's union with the body is accidental, rather than essential for the soul as a subsistent form. 14. Theology is a practical, rather than speculative science. It is ordered to the act of loving God. 15. The formal distinction applies within the Trinity. The persons are formally, though not really, distinct. Being as being, ens in quantum ens, is the proper subject of metaphysics. 17. The most perfect natural knowledge of God is knowledge of Him as the infinite being. 18. Existence is not an accident added to essence, but is constituted by the degree of intrinsic actuality of the form. 19. Relations can be real without requiring an additional ontological layer beyond their foundations. 20. The soul is directly aware of its own acts of willing and understanding, a form of direct self-knowledge. 16. Henry of Ghent, approximately 10 Theses. 1. God is known first and most fundamentally through an innate illumination, not through abstraction from creatures. 2. Divine illumination, illuminatio divina, is required for certain and infallible knowledge. The human intellect alone can produce only probable opinion. 3. There is a distinction between essence and existence in creatures, but it is intentional, distinctio rationis cum fundamento in re, not purely mental nor fully real. 4. Ideas in the divine mind are the exemplars of created beings. Creation is an act of intellectual imitation. 5. The possible intellect requires an active intellect distinct from it, but the agent intellect in humans may be identified with a divine illumination. 6. Theological propositions known by faith can become objects of genuine understanding, intellectus fidei, under divine illumination. 7. The will's freedom is compatible with divine foreknowledge because God knows all contingents in an eternal present. 8. The soul's intellective appetite, will, can tend toward the good even before the intellect fully specifies the object. 9. Grace elevates the intellect to a participation in the divine light that natural intellection cannot attain. 10. The beatific vision is an intuitive rather than abstractive knowledge. The soul sees God directly, not through a created representation. 17. Giles of Rome, approximately 8 Theses. 1. The real distinction between essence and existence in creatures is more radical than Aquinas suggests. They are like two distinct things, not just two aspects. 2. Matter is pure passivity. Form provides all the actuality even in the composite. 3. The soul's immortality follows necessarily from its status as a subsistent form. 4. Free will requires both intellect and will working in concert. Neither alone constitutes freedom. 5. The celestial intelligences are not identical with the spheres they move, but are genuinely separate substances. 6. Potentiality is a genuine ontological category, not merely the absence of actuality. 7. The first principle, being purely actual, excludes all potentiality and therefore all composition. 8. Love, amor, is the return of the will to its proper object, as intellect is the return of knowing to its proper object. 18. Roger Bacon, approximately 6 Theses. 1. Mathematical sciences are indispensable for the study of nature. Without them, natural philosophy is blind. 2. Optics, perspectiva, is the most perfect of the natural sciences, capable of explaining celestial and sublunary phenomena alike. 3. Experience, experimentum, is necessary to verify the conclusions of reason. The scientist who has not confirmed results experimentally does not truly know. 4. Magic, magia naturalis, consists in knowledge of the hidden powers of nature, distinguished sharply from demonic magic. 5. Astrology provides genuine causal knowledge when founded on proper astronomical data and natural philosophical principles. 6. The universal language of mathematics underlies all natural causation and provides the key to understanding divine creation. 19. William of Ockham and Nominalists, approximately 8 Theses. 1. Only individuals exist. Universals are merely names, nomina, signs that stand for multiple similar individuals. 2. No real distinction exists beyond the distinction between individuals. All distinctions are either between distinct things or merely conceptual. 3. God's absolute power, potentia absoluta, can bring about anything that is not logically contradictory. including the annihilation of forms, direct production of effects without causes, etc. 4. The intellect knows individuals directly and immediately. Singular knowledge, notitia intuitiva, is the foundation of all knowledge. 5. Theological truths accepted on faith cannot be demonstrated by natural reason. Philosophy and theology have distinct domains. 6. Causation is a constant conjunction of events. Necessity is a feature of our linguistic/logical habits, not metaphysical reality. 7. Moral obligation derives entirely from divine command. There is no natural law independent of God's will. 8. The principle of parsimony, Occam's razor, requires eliminating all unnecessary entities from ontological explanations. 20. Other scholastics, Bonaventure, Alexander of Hales, Richard of St. Victor, and others, approximately 25 additional theses, including positions on the exemplarism of Bonaventure. All created knowledge is grounded in the divine exemplars. Creatures are vestiges, images, and similitudes of God. The soul's knowledge of God through interiority, reductio in diem. The Seraphic Doctor's synthesis of Franciscan spiritual theology with Neoplatonic assent. The Trinity as a model of all intellectual and psychological structure. Mystical theology as the apex of all learning. Part 2. Conclusions according to his own opinion, secundum propriam opinionem, paradoxical theses in general philosophy, 71 theses. These represent Pico's most original and provocative philosophical positions. On being and unity, one, being, ens, and the one, unum, are not identical. Being is predicable in diverse ways. The one of the Neoplatonists is strictly beyond being. 2. The one of Plato's Parmenides is not a hypothesis about the nature of the one, but the supreme theological truth about the first principle. 3. The Proclean triad, mone, prudos, epistrophe, remaining, procession, return, is the universal structure of all derived being. 4. The 10 Aristotelian categories apply primarily to the realm of natural substances, but require analogical extension for spiritual beings. 5. In God, the distinction between intellect, will, and essence collapses absolutely. God's knowing and willing are identical with his being. On intellect and soul, 6. The intellective soul of humanity occupies the median position in the hierarchy of being. It is both the lowest of the spiritual and the highest of the natural. 7. This median position, positio media, gives the human soul a unique freedom. It can descend to the bestial or ascend to the divine. 8. The human being is the copula mundi, the bond of the world, because through the soul's plasticity, all levels of being meet. 9. The intellect in act and the intellect in potency are not numerically identical, but are stages in a single actualization process. 10. The Averroistic doctrine of a single intellect for all humanity contains an important truth. The act of understanding transcends individual boundaries. 11. Nonetheless, individual souls are truly immortal. The individual does not dissolve into the universal intellect. 12. The will is freer than the intellect, and it can reject what the intellect judges to be good, but the intellect cannot not know what is evidently true to it. 13. The soul's plasticity, indeterminacy, is not a defect but the highest gift. It is what makes humans capable of becoming anything. 14. The famous oration thesis. Humans have no fixed nature assigned at creation. They can fashion themselves into any form, ascending or descending through their own free choices. On knowledge. 15. The three modes of philosophical knowledge, symbolic, anagogical, and analogical, each access the same truth through different symbolic registers. 16. Ancient theology, Prisca Theologia, the tradition from Moses through Pythagoras, Plato, and the Hermetic writings, preserves genuine divine revelation alongside scriptural revelation. 17. The harmony of Plato and Aristotle is deeper than their apparent disagreements. They agree on all fundamental metaphysical principles when correctly interpreted. 18. Philosophy and theology are not adversaries. Properly understood, each reaches toward the other's domain. 19. The Mosaic Law contains a double tradition, the exoteric written law and the esoteric oral tradition, Kabbalah, both divinely revealed. 20. Mathematical demonstration provides certainty of a lower order than metaphysical and theological intuition. On the nature of theology. Negative theology, theologia negativa, is not merely a corrective addendum to positive theology, but its highest and most truthful form. 22. The divine names in Scripture are not arbitrary labels, but participate in the nature they signify. This is the foundation of sacred name mysticism. 23. The 99 names of God in the Islamic tradition, the divine names in Pseudo-Dionysius, and the Kabbalistic divine names are different expressions of the same ineffable reality. 24. The Trinity is philosophically demonstrable from the nature of the self-sufficient intellect, Father as source, Son as self-knowledge, Spirit as self-love. 25. The Incarnation is the supreme instance of the cosmic principle of union of highest and lowest, the same principle that makes the human soul the bond of creation. On magic and natural philosophy. Natural magic, magia naturalis, is not superstition, but the practical application of knowledge about the hidden sympathies, antipathies, and correspondences embedded in nature. A magician does not command demons, but employs the natural powers of things, minerals, plants, words, numbers, whose virtues are known through philosophical study. 28. Astrology is valid in its natural aspect. Celestial bodies exert physical influence on sublunary matter, but invalid in its deterministic aspect. The stars do not compel human free choices. 29. Words and numbers possess genuine causal efficacy when deployed with knowledge of their natural and metaphysical correspondences. 30. The wise man rules the stars rather than being ruled by them. The philosophical life is the true liberation from astrological fate. Additional paradoxical theses on time, eternity, matter, form, cause, providence, freedom, evil, language, and the unity of philosophy and religion. F. Conclusions in Natural Philosophy. Section 50 Theses. 1. The four elements, earth, water, air, fire, are not ultimate simples, but composites of prime matter and elemental form. 2. Prime matter is not absolute non-being. It has a minimal, indeterminate actuality. 3. Form is the source of all positive determination in natural substances. 4. The principle of generation is always the adduction of form from the potency of matter. Nothing comes from nothing. 5. Corruption is not the annihilation of substance, but the dissolution of a composite and the liberation of matter for new form. 6. Heavy bodies tend toward the center, not by intrinsic nature, but by the arrangement of the cosmic order. 7. The celestial region is not composed of a fifth element, aether, in the Aristotelian sense. Celestial matter differs from sublunary matter only in degree of perfection. The souls of the celestial spheres are genuine intellects, lower in the hierarchy than the separate intelligences, but higher than human souls. 9. The natural appetite of matter for form corresponds to the metaphysical principle of eros. All things desire the good. 10. The properties of numbers are not merely conventional, but reflect genuine natural realities. The Pythagoreans were right to find mathematical structure in nature. 11. The occult properties, proprietates occultae, of natural things, magnetic attraction, the healing power of herbs, the fascination of the eye, are genuine natural effects with natural, if hidden, causes. 12. Light is the most perfect of all natural things. It is the immediate effect of the divine creative act in the material world. 13. Sound and music operate on the soul through natural sympathy. The mathematical ratios of musical intervals correspond to the ratios constituting the world's soul. The imagination, imaginatio, is a genuine power intermediate between sense and intellect, capable of mediating between the physical and the spiritual. 15. The human body is a microcosm. Its structure mirrors and contains in small compass all the structures of the greater cosmos. Additional theses on meteorology, mineralogy, the properties of plants, the nature of sensation, the physiology of generation, etc. G. Conclusions in moral philosophy. 20 theses. 1. The highest good for humans is not pleasure, honor, or even political excellence, but the contemplation of truth. 2. The moral virtues, courage, temperance, justice, are prerequisites for intellectual virtue, but not its substitute. 3. The philosophical life, properly understood, is itself a form of prayer, a continuous orientation toward the divine. 4. Happiness, felicitas, in this life consists in the actualization of the intellect. In the next life, it consists in direct vision of God. 5. Natural human dignity derives from the soul's rational nature, not from social status, wealth, or birth. 6. True human dignity, however, is achieved, not given. It depends on the use to which human freedom is put. 7. Philosophy purifies the soul of the passions that obstruct intellectual vision. In this sense, it performs the same function as religious ascetic practice. 8. Love, amor, in its highest form is the intellectual recognition and willing of the good, not an irrational passion, but the soul's proper orientation toward its source. 9. Friendship, amicizia, among philosophers is the highest form of human society, a community of intellectual vision and moral aspiration. 10. The apparent diversity of ethical systems, Platonic, Aristotelian, Stoic, conceals a deeper agreement on the fundamental principle, the cultivation of the soul toward its proper excellence. Virtue is its own reward. The virtuous person experiences in the very exercise of virtue an intrinsic satisfaction that outweighs all external goods. 12. The ruler who governs well participates in the divine governance of the cosmos. Political excellence at its highest touches on the metaphysical. 13. No human being is truly free who is enslaved to the passions. Freedom is the goal of philosophy, not merely its presupposition. 14. The soul's plasticity, its capacity to become anything, carries a corresponding moral weight, the responsibility to become the best possible version of what it can be. 15. Death, properly understood, is not to be feared. The soul's separation from the body is its liberation for fuller intellectual activity. H. Mathematical and magical conclusions. 40 theses. Mathematical. 1. The mathematical sciences, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy, form a natural preparatory curriculum for metaphysics. 2. Unity, the principle of arithmetic, corresponds to the metaphysical one, dyad to the principle of multiplicity, triad to the first composite structure. 3. The geometric point corresponds metaphysically to the divine unity, the line to procession, the surface to the full deployment of being. 4. The perfect numbers 6, 28, 496 have theological significance. They embody the completeness of divine creative expression. 5. Musical harmony is the audible image of cosmic and metaphysical order. The Pythagoreans were right to find in music the key to all philosophy. 6. The 5 Platonic solids provide the mathematical skeleton of the physical cosmos. 7. Number is the intermediary between the intelligible and sensible worlds. Through number, the mind ascends from matter to form. 0, nothing, in mathematics, corresponds to the absolutely transcendent one, beyond being, in metaphysics. 9. Mathematical demonstration, though certain, attains only a middle level of truth. Below theological intuition, but above natural philosophical induction. 10. The secrets of nature are written in mathematical characters. God is the supreme geometer. Magical. 11. Natural magic is the most noble of all the practical sciences. It produces genuine effects through knowledge of natural sympathies. 12. No work of magic has power except insofar as it exploits natural causation. Any magic that claims to transcend natural causation is either divine miracle or demonic fraud. 13. The three worlds, elemental, celestial, and supercelestial, have their respective chains of sympathy. The magician who knows these chains can draw power from higher levels into lower. Characters, figures, and seals used in natural magic derive their efficacy from the celestial configurations they imitate or invoke. 15. Words have magical power when they participate in the natural language of things. The lingua Adamica, Adamic language, was such a language before the confusion of tongues. 16. The magician's power over natural things derives ultimately from knowledge. Magic is practical natural philosophy, not supernatural intervention. 17. Animals, plants, and stones all possess occult virtues implanted by the celestial bodies and the divine powers working through them. 18. The physician who knows magical correspondences can heal more effectively than the physician who knows only manifest causes. 19. Music, properly composed according to celestial ratios, can alter the soul's disposition and even bodily conditions. 20. The image of a celestial configuration, made under that configuration's astrological moment, captures and focuses the celestial influx. Additional theses extending the magical analysis to specific natural phenomena, sympathies between planets and metals, herbs and animals, and the principles of astrological timing. I. Kabbalistic conclusions. 47 theses. This was the most original and controversial section, the first systematic attempt by a Christian thinker to integrate Jewish mystical tradition into Christian theology and Neoplatonic philosophy. On the nature of Kabbalah. No knowledge confirms the divinity of Christ more powerfully than Kabbalah properly understood. 2. The Kabbalah is not a merely human tradition, but a divinely revealed wisdom transmitted orally from Moses alongside the written Torah. 3. The exoteric Torah is the surface. The Kabbalah is the hidden interior meaning. Together they constitute the complete revelation. The Kabbalistic tradition is in essential harmony with Pythagorean number mysticism, Neoplatonic emanation theory, and Christian Trinitarian theology. On the Sephirot. 5. The 10 Sephirot, Keter, Kokma, Bina, Kesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malkut, are not divine substances separate from God, but modes of divine self-manifestation. 6. The Sephirot correspond to the Neoplatonic hierarchy of being. The upper triad, Keter, Kokma, Bina, corresponds to the three hypostases, one, intellect, soul. Keter, crown, is the divine will and the first stirring of divine self-manifestation, beyond all attributes, yet the ground of them all. 8. Kokma, wisdom, is the divine intellect, the realm of primordial ideas, corresponding to the Logos and to the Platonic intellect, nous. 9. Bina, understanding, is the divine mother, the principle that receives the seeds of wisdom and unfolds them into the multiplicity of being. The first three Sephirot constitute an inner trinity, corresponding to the Christian Trinity: Father, Keter; Son, Logos, Chokmah; Holy Spirit, Binah. 11. Tiferet, beauty, splendor, is the central Sephirah, the heart of the divine structure, the seat of divine compassion, and the proper name YHWH. 12. Tiferet, in its aspect as the Son of the Divine Father and Mother, corresponds to the second person of the Trinity. The identification of Jesus with Tiferet is Kabbalistically appropriate. 13. Yesod, foundation, is the channel of divine blessing to the lower world, corresponding to the generative principle. 14. Malkut, kingdom, is the Shekinah, the divine presence in the world, the feminine aspect of the divine, corresponding to the church or the world soul. 15. The Sephirot are arranged on the tree of life, a cosmic diagram of the structure of reality and of the soul's path of return. On divine names. The divine name YHWH, Tetragrammaton, is not merely a label but a mystical formula encoding the structure of being. Yod, point of divine unity. He, unfolding of being. Vav, connecting channel. He, manifestation. The insertion of the letter Shin into YHWH, producing YHSHVH, Yeshua, expresses mystically the incarnation of the divine word into the name of Jesus. The divine name Elohim, plural form, contains a numerical value, gematria, equal to the nature Hateva, indicating that God is the nature of all natures. The 72-letter name of God, Shem HaMeforash, is derivable from Exodus 14:19-21 and encodes a complete map of divine emanation. Each Hebrew letter participates in the divine creative power. The letters are not conventional signs, but ontological constituents of reality. On Gematria, Natarikon, and Temora. Gematria, numerical value of letters, reveals hidden connections between concepts. The equivalence of numerical values indicates metaphysical correspondence. 22. Notarikon, using letters as initials, permits the reading of compressed divine messages within single words. 23. Temora, letter permutation, reveals the hidden transformations within divine reality, the grammar of divine self-transformation. 24. These three methods, Gematria, Notarikon, Temora, are not tricks of ingenuity, but genuine hermeneutical methods grounded in the ontological status of Hebrew as the divine language. On creation. 25. The first word of Genesis, Bereshit, in the beginning, contains within itself, for the Kabbalist, the complete structure of divine creation. 26. The creation account is a mystical text encoding the emanation of the Sephirot, not a naive cosmological narrative. The 6 days of creation correspond to the 6 lower Sephirot. Each day represents a divine attribute's expression in the work of creation. The Sabbath corresponds to Binah. The divine rest is the return of created being to its source, in the divine understanding. Adam was created at the junction of all worlds, body from the earth, soul from the divine breath, and was given dominion over all creation through his unique mediating position. The fall, Het Adam, sin of Adam, disrupted the proper alignment of the Sephirot. It introduced a cosmic disorder that the work of Torah and contemplation seeks to repair, tikkun. On messianism and eschatology. The coming of the Messiah is encoded in the Kabbalistic structure of history. The divine plan works through the unfolding of Sephirot in historical time. The Kabbalistic calculation of the world's duration, based on the Sephirot and the cosmic week of 7,000 years, is in harmony with Christian eschatology. The resurrection of the dead corresponds to the restoration of Malchut to her proper union with Tiferet, the cosmic marriage of the divine masculine and feminine principles. 34. The world to come, Olam Haba, is not merely a temporal future, but the eternal dimension that underlies present reality. On the soul. 35. The soul has 3 levels in Kabbalistic anthropology: Nephesh, vital soul; Ruach, spirit; and Neshama, divine soul. 36. Neshama is the divine spark in humanity, the portion of Binah placed within each person. 37. The soul's ultimate goal is Devakut, cleaving to God, an intimate union with the divine source that preserves the soul's individuality while transcending its separateness. 38. Neshama descends from Binah, but is never entirely severed from it. There is always a thread of divine connection that cannot be broken. The study of Torah, with proper Kabbalistic intent, is itself a transformative practice. It repairs, tikkun, both the individual soul and the cosmic order. 40. Prayer, When directed with proper Kabbalistic intention, kavanah, literally participates in the inner life of the divine. It is not petition to an external God, but participation in divine self-movement. Christological Kabbalah 41. The Kabbalistic doctrine of Tzimtzum, divine contraction to make room for creation, contains an implicit analogy to the kenosis, self-emptying of Christ in the incarnation. 42. The divine face, panim, and the divine back, akor, God seen face to face, versus from behind, correspond to the beatific vision versus the present veiled knowledge. 43. The angel Metatron, the highest of all celestial beings, the Sar HaPanim, Prince of the Presence, is a typological figure of Christ as the divine intermediary. 44. The Kabbalistic doctrine of the divine chariot, Merkabah, the vision of Ezekiel, is a mystical theology of the divine hierarchy, corresponding to pseudo-Dionysian angelology. The Kabbalistic doctrine of the primordial atom, Adam Kadmon, the cosmic human form of divine being, is the mystical background to the Pauline doctrine of Christ as the new Adam. The number 72, the 72 names, the 72 nations, encodes the cosmic scope of divine redemption, corresponding to the 72 disciples Christ sent out in Luke 10. The Kabbalistic sage who has achieved genuine union with the divine, Devakut, participates in the same prophetic spirit that animated Moses, and for the Christian Kabbalist, that animated Christ. J. Magical Orphic Conclusions, 26 Theses. These concern the magical interpretation of natural reality. 1. Nothing in natural magic is more powerful than the hymns of Orpheus. Properly performed with understanding, they draw upon all the celestial powers. 2. As the Psalms of David are the instruments of Hebraic theurgical practice, the hymns of Orpheus are the instruments of natural magic. 3. The 7 vowels of the Greek alphabet correspond to the 7 planets. Their proper intonation summons their respective celestial influxes. 4. Sulfur, mercury, and salt, the 3 Paracelsian principles, correspond to soul, spirit, and body in all natural things. 5. The true alchemical work is not the transmutation of metals, but the transmutation of the soul, purification, nigredo, illumination, albedo, and perfection, rubedo. 6. Lunar magic governs all generation and corruption in the sublunary realm. The moon is the universal matrix of physical change. Solar magic governs intellectual illumination. The sun is the image of the good, analogia solis, that Plato describes in the Republic. 8. The planets are not merely physical bodies, but genuine divine powers with characteristic modes of action on earthly reality. 9. The art of combining celestial influxes, drawing on multiple planets through appropriately timed operations, is the highest form of natural magic. 10. Incantatory speech, when composed with knowledge of celestial correspondences and natural sympathies, produces genuine physical effects. 11. The Orphic tradition preserves, in symbolic and mythological form, the same metaphysical truths expressed philosophically by Pythagoras and Plato. 12. The myths of Orpheus are not primitive superstitions, but encoded philosophical teachings about the soul's descent, embodiment, and return. The myth of Dionysus's dismemberment and reassembly encodes the metaphysical doctrine of the soul's fragmentation in matter and its reunification through philosophical practice. The myth of Orpheus and Eurydice encodes the danger of the soul's reimmersion in matter, looking back, during its ascent. The Orphic eggs symbolize the cosmic containment of all potentiality within the primordial divine unity. Night, in the Orphic theogony, corresponds to the primordial divine abyss, the Kabbalistic ayin, nothingness, from which all proceeds. Eros in the Orphic cosmogony is the firstborn deity from the primordial egg, corresponding to the Neoplatonic principle of cosmic love drawing all things toward unity. The Orphic tradition confirms, through poetic theology, the same truths that Plato formulated philosophically and Moses encoded in Torah. The initiatory mysteries of Orphism provided the soul with knowledge necessary for its post-mortem journey, corresponding to the ritual preparation provided by philosophy and sacred study. 20. Wine in the Dionysian mysteries symbolizes the intoxication of the soul by divine beauty, a controlled dissolution of the merely rational into the higher intuitive faculty. 21. The Orphic gold tablet's instruction to drink from the spring of memory, mnemosyne, encodes the Platonic doctrine of recollection, the soul's return to its prior knowledge. 22. The cosmological hymns of Orpheus, addressed to the various gods, are in truth addressed to the various modes of the one good. The pantheon is a poetic mapping of divine attributes. 23. The universal mother, Gaia Rhea Cybele, in Orphic theology, corresponds to the world soul, the generative power of the cosmos. The Titans represent the principle of division and dispersion. They are the mythological expression of matter's tendency to fragment the spiritual. 25. The Orphic teaching on metempsychosis, properly understood, is not about literal animal reincarnation, but about the soul's capacity to take on different modes of being, higher or lower, in this life and beyond. 26. The synthesis of Orphic poetry, Pythagorean mathematics, Platonic philosophy, Hermetic wisdom, Chaldean oracle, and Mosaic Kabbalah reveals a single universal theology, the Prisca Theologia, of which all traditions are partial expressions. K. Orphic conclusions interpreted through magic and Kabbalah, 11 theses. These final theses synthesize the entire project. 1. The 50 gates of understanding, Shar HaBinah, in Kabbalah correspond to the Proclean hierarchy of 50 divine orders. Kabbalistic and Neoplatonic theology map onto each other. Moses ascended to 49 of the 50 gates of understanding. The 50th is reserved for the Messianic age, corresponding to the fullness of divine knowledge. 3. The Orphic doctrine of night as the primordial principle corresponds to the Kabbalistic ayin, the divine nothingness that precedes and exceeds all being. 4. The three worlds of the magician, elemental, celestial, supercelestial, correspond to the Kabbalistic worlds of Asiya, Yetzirah, and Beria, Atzilut. 5. The true bond between all these traditions, Orphic, Pythagorean, Platonic, Hermetic, Chaldean, Kabbalistic, Christian, is the universal truth that the one good is the source and goal of all being, and that human dignity consists in the freedom to ascend toward it. 6. The method of this ascent is threefold in all traditions: purification, moral ascetic, illumination, philosophical mystical, and union, mystical theurgical. The figures Moses, Zoroaster, Orpheus, Pythagoras, Plato, Hermes Trismegistus, and Solomon are all vehicles of the same universal revelation, each expressing it in the symbolic register appropriate to their tradition. 8. The philosopher who masters all these traditions does not achieve a merely eclectic synthesis. He achieves the concordia, harmony of all wisdom, recognizing in each tradition a partial embodiment of universal truth. 9. The dignitas homines, the dignity of man, consists precisely in this capacity for universal synthesis. The human being is the one creature capable of encompassing all levels of being within itself, and of rising to the knowledge and love of the source of all. 10. The highest act of the universal philosopher is not philosophical argument, but mystical ascent, not the victory of one school over another, but the transcendence of all schools in direct union with the first principle. This universal philosophy, pursued in the spirit of concordia, is the best preparation for and the best complement to Christian theology. It demonstrates through reason and tradition what faith holds by divine authority. Summary by section. Section source. Approx count. Arab and Jewish philosophers, Averroes, Avicenna, Avicebron, Al-Farabi, Maimonides, etc. Others' opinions, 74. Chaldean theology, Zoroaster, Chaldean oracles. Others' opinions, 3. Greek Neoplatonists, Plotinus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, Proclus. Others' opinions, 135. Plato and Platonists. Others' opinions, 55. Pythagoras and Pythagoreans. Others' opinions, 10. Other Greek philosophers and commentators. Others' opinions, 20. Scholastics, Aquinas, Scotus, Henry of Ghent, Occam, Bonaventure, etc. Others' opinions, 100. Paradoxical conclusions in general philosophy, Pico's own opinion, 71. Natural philosophy, Pico's own opinion, 50. Moral philosophy, Pico's own opinion, 20. Mathematical and magical conclusions, Pico's own opinion, 40. Kabbalistic conclusions, Pico's own opinion, 47. Magical Orphic conclusions, Pico's own opinion, 26. Orphic, magical, Kabbalistic synthesis, Pico's own opinion, 11. Various other theses across categories, both parts, 238. Total, 900. Uncategories, the condemned 13 theses, 1487. Pope Innocent VIII's commission identified 13 heretical theses, including the denial that Christ ascended into hell in his person, merely virtually. Certain Kabbalistic theses implying that magic and Kabbalah confirm the incarnation more powerfully than any other argument. Claims about the magical efficacy of the divine names. Certain positions on the nature of the soul's immortality. Theses touching on the relationship between divine grace and philosophical merit. Pico responded with his Apologia, 1487, defending each condemned thesis. He was briefly imprisoned before fleeing to France, eventually receiving absolution from Alexander VI in 1493. This survey represents the most comprehensive English-language structured overview of all 900 theses by section and theme. For the complete Latin text with critical apparatus, the standard scholarly edition remains S. A. Farmer's Syncretism in the West, Pico's 900 Theses, 1486, MRTS 1998, which provides the full Latin, English translation, and commentary.
Hi, this is Mike Koplitz from Followers of the Way Ministry. I hope you enjoyed this video. There is a tremendous amount of other material on the Followers of the Way website. You can find all kinds of no-cost material, research papers, videos, church graphics, educational videos. And I hope you take an opportunity to come visit. God bless. Amen.